Okay, here we are in France to prepare chicken fricassee. So before we get started, I'll show you the ingredients. Okay, so now let's do a little prep work before we actually deal with the chicken. What we're going to do is cut our onion into quarters while retaining a little bit of this root end. That way the onion will hold together. So we'll take off a little bit of where the dirty root is, but otherwise we keep it pretty much intact, and we'll slice through the bottom into quarters like this, and then we'll remove the skin like that. This. Okay, so now that we've got that prepared, we can move on to the chicken. Now, we've got 4 chicken thighs, and I've removed the skin on a couple of them because when you braise, the chicken skin often just gets flabby. So here's how you remove it. Just pull it off like this, and then there's usually some excess fat, and I would just cut off that. In fact, there's a little bit here, so I'll cut that off. And same way with these other pieces that I've already skinned. Take that off. And I've washed these thighs, but you'll also want to make sure that you've got them pretty dry, because you want to get a little bit of browning on them when you start to fry them. So let's remove that. Let's see. And this other side, get rid of a little bit of fat there too. And maybe here. Okay. And now here's this last piece. I think what I'll do is I'll actually keep the skin on this last piece and some of the skin, and we'll get a little bit of chicken flavor from that skin, but we won't have it all. Okay, so here we are. Good. Now these pieces are ready to start frying up to begin the process. So now we'll go over to the stove. So here we are. I've got my pan heating up to about a medium high. I'm going to put a little bit of butter. You can just use oil also, so I'm going to use a little bit of both, but you can just use oil. And we'll get that good and piping hot. And when we get that hot, because we don't want to boil the chicken, we'd like to get it frying. So there we go. The oil's starting to sizzle. Butter's starting to sizzle. So I'll put the chicken thighs in. The first one I'll put in is the one with the skin, but the others I'll put on their skin side down if they had skin. Okay. And at this point, I'm going to season it with a little bit of salt on each thigh and a little bit of pepper. Okay, so we want to keep cooking this so it gets a little bit of color, a little browning, and we can check that after a few more minutes. It probably takes more like 5 minutes or so to get a kind of a browning going. You don't want it to be dark brown because ultimately this sauce is going to be more like a white sauce, not like a coq au vin that's going to be dark with red wine. This will have white wine and chicken stock, not beef stock. Okay, so this has got a little bit of cooking going, so let's turn it over. Okay, and once this gets cooking on this side, we can add some flour to it. This is going to be like building in your roux. I'm going to add about 3 tablespoons. And as soon as the other side gets kind of a little bit cooked, we'll flip it over and incorporate that flour in. I'm going to season this side also. Okay. All right. Let's turn that over. Get the flour kind of incorporated in the oil. Cooking. All right. And a little bit more oil. I think this is a little bit more. Okay. Now we're going to add our onions, and we're just going to place them in between where we can. And crowd it in there. Okay. Now we'll deglaze. Oh, wait a minute. I'll add, this calls for tarragon, but you can use other herbs also. Basil would be fine. And so in my notes I've suggested a number of other things. Now we'll add white wine first. And that's boiling off a little bit of the alcohol. And then we'll add the chicken stock. And I'm just using store-bought chicken stock. You don't want to cover these all the way. You just really want to get them partially submerged. And I'm going to flip them over. Get those herbs in the sauce. There we go. Okay. And then we're going to take the cover and we're going to cover it up. And we're going to let it simmer. Turn the heat down to a low so it's going to still maintain a simmer. You want that slow simmer. But then this will cook for another 30 or 40 minutes until the chicken is about 160, 170. Or if you poke it with a knife, it doesn't show any blood. And the meat should be easy to come away from the bone a little bit, but it shouldn't be falling apart. Okay, it's been about 30, actually more like 45 minutes. let's check our chicken. Okay, there it's boiling, simmering away, and let's turn it down, turn it off. Let's check the temperature. And we're up to 184, really good. Okay, now what we want to do is add the last ingredient, the cream, which we'll put in. And we'll stir it around a little bit. In fact, I'll bring up the temperature so the cream has a chance to get warm. Okay, now that's incorporated. Let's give it a taste just to make sure our seasoning is about right. Let's see here. Oh, that's very good. Yes, that's perfect. Okay, doesn't need any adjustments on salt or pepper. So let's plate it up here. We've got this plate. We'll put our pieces in. And we'll surround it with some of the onion. Oh. Onion's got really well cooked. I think that's good. Let's get some of the sauce. Or I can really taste the tarragon. That's nice. Tarragon has a kind of a mild anise flavor, which I think goes really well with chicken. Okay, so here we are. Got our dish right here. Looks pretty good. Okay, let's taste it. Put it down here. And we'll get our spoon. Let's get one of the pieces of chicken here. Get a little bit of an onion. Get the sauce. All right, and let's slice a piece. Oh yeah, very good. Let's try it. Wow, that's great. It's wonderful. Let's let our camera crew have a chance to taste it. Come on over and taste this. This is pretty good. I'll even try some of the onion.
Good flavor. And very
taste the tarragon.
Very tender. Yes, I can taste the tarragon.
Yeah, very good. Well, that about wraps it up for France.
And that's the only spice we have.
You'll see the other notes that you can use vermouth instead of white wine. You might even try gin. That would add a lot of herbal character that could be interesting. And so take a look at those notes on various things you could add. Mushrooms, for instance, could be an addition. But this is the basics. It doesn't take very long. The actual hands-on cooking part is really very short, maybe 10 or 15 minutes at the most, and then it has to simmer. As an added bonus, we're going to prepare chocolate truffles. And so join us for this next little segment on the tail end of our French adventure. We're going to prepare chocolate truffles.